seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at WhisperStatus74. Welcome to the community, welcome to the channel. This is the first time you are seeing me. Please consider liking and subscribing. We are Real Tech for Real People. Today's video is going to be about LG and CES, which began today, which is streaming. Unfortunately, it's not happening live as we all know. I definitely planned on being there this year. But we're going to talk about and also show you a little bit of hands-on footage of the LG ZX, which is the top of the line OLED from them this year, which is actually a 2020 OLED, which is being carried over. It is gorgeous. Seeing it in person, it is very similar to the year before's Z9. The Z9, I believe, was only in one size. It was about 30 grand. The 77-inch is available at Value Electronics. That's where I actually had some hands-on footage with that. And the 75-inch Nano Cell 8K, which is also in this video. They're both extremely impressive. The ZX, I believe, is $20,000 at 77 inches and nearly $30,000 at 88 inches. It is absolutely gorgeous, but I want to talk a little bit about LG's news. And really CES and things like E3 and these trade shows in general. A lot of times what we see from years past, Samsung showing micro LED, they show a lot of prototypes in a lot of these companies. What we're seeing from OLED, or from LG I should say, that's a little bit different, is for me we're seeing a lot of the same thing. Now, the mini LED from LG is encouraging, but what I want to talk a little bit about here is marketing. Nano Cell has been marketed very well over the last number of years, but I've only seen one impressive Nano Cell, which is the 8K version, which you're going to see at the end of this video, which has gorgeous blacks. It's very bright. It looks amazing, even next to the ZX. But LG, for me, has a lot to prove me in the LED space, whether it's with mini LED or whatever they choose to release. Their marketing is always great. And the marketing speak for all of these companies is all based on their processor. This next gen, ultra gen, Extreme 2, Extreme 3, I want to see, for me, a tangible difference between your OLEDs. So their lineup has an A series now, taking the place of the B series. So you kind of switched the letters. It's an affordable option. I appreciate that. It leaves off some of the higher end features, but the B series last year was priced so similarly to the C series last year, it kind of didn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully the A series will be priced very affordably. The C series, the C1 series, is basically what the successor, or I should say the CX, this is last year's behind me, is always the most interesting and the best selling. You know, C8, C9, C7. And what I'm looking for there is a tangible upgrade. If there's anything with LG that bothers me or is good with them, is they're very consistent, but it's consistently the same. Now, the talk that we all hear is brighter OLEDs. You're seeing that from Panasonic. Sony will be releasing one of those this year as well as LG with the heatsink. That is 83 inches. But again, that goes back to what we've always talked about, is the first implementation of these products are always ultra expensive. I imagine that, I am just guessing, you're probably looking at about $7,000 US, maybe $8 for the 83-inch OLED. We have to remember that inches in regards to TVs is ultimately super expensive by even a few inches. We've got 75-inch TVs versus 77-inch TVs. The price jumps dramatically. So for somebody like me, personally, who has a CX, which is going back tomorrow, I have another one here as well. Should I sit out and wait for that brighter OLED? Not going to do that. It's going to take a while for it to come out, and it's also going to be very expensive. And I'm not really willing myself to spend another couple $1,000s for that few inches with an OLED. Now, I'd love to see a brighter OLED, but where I want to get back into, other than that 83-inch, which is very interesting, I would love to see that be implemented on all of the panels, meaning the whole C-series lineup. That's where LG loses me. And a lot of these companies do that. I'm going to go back to a company that relates to it but not is when the Vizio, I know, God forbid I bring up Vizio with LG, Vizio had their Quantum XP series 1 year. It was only one size. That was like their beta, and then they released it in other sizes the next year. This 83-inch panel, I do feel, is their beta. It's going to be an expensive beta. We'll see what it does, and then probably the year after that, we'll see that trickle down. But we're going to run out of road is it going to be 4K? Is it going to be 8K? That's where this year is a little bit different. And then the talk of processing. What I'm hearing between LG C series this year versus last year, which is the CX versus the C9, is always this processing marketing. And it's always upscaling and AI and object reflection, and the TV is going to learn how to show you leaves each time. I have the CX. I've had it since March, and I'm not really sure I've seen any real AI transforming happening. Is it improved a little bit in upscaling? Maybe. But it's not something that I look at and say, wow, I'm really paying for that processing. Meaning, versus market speak, I want to see a tangible difference on screen. I want to see it as I look at it, whether it's higher peak brightness, higher contrast ratio, faster pixel response, whatever. I want it to be something more than market speak, which we can, and we're going to do a video one day on this and go through the past. Like for instance, I'm looking at my Denon 6700 here. The label on a lot of our products, the XY, deep color, all these different AI, it's all, I'm sure it's real at some point, but the marketing, I want to see a difference markedly better than last year or the year before. To me, the C8 might have been the best OLED. It was bright, it was punchy, and then you had the C9, which was awesome, but the C9 was 48 gigabytes per second. And then you had the CX, which is now 40 gigabytes per second. So it's really interesting. Wow, that looks like blooming on my OLED. It's not, though. I want to see more tangible from these companies. I'm very excited to see what Samsung does. They're adding 12-bit panels. They're adding all kinds of new technology. But are we going to be risking first generation on that? We're staying with LG here. I'll show you again when I'm done, blah, blah. You'll see the actual ZX again, which is from last year. But is the ZX going to be as bright as this 83-inch that's releasing? Panasonic has already been doing the brighter OLEDs for a while now. Why don't we have those panels, considering that they're LG panels? So that's where you're losing me a little bit. CX is great, but not very different from the C9 other than the processing. There are some improvements there, but again, are they something that you can see with the eye? So LG, though I think it's a decent showing by them, offering the A series. The A series is fantastic. Please make it extremely affordable. I'm not sure how much more affordable they can be, but still keep a lot of the options for the the larger, sizes in the C series. The GX will be, again, their high-end flush mount. But as far as what I've heard from them, other than the 83-inch, which we don't have pricing really on yet, and it's only going to be available for a certain few, it's really samey for me. That's my thoughts on it. It's a lot of processing talk, which I'd like to see, again, more tangible differences on screen. Tell me that these OLEDs are better at upscaling, but show it to me. Show me the higher peak brightness of them. So for me, the C1 will be very much the same as the CX, which is very much the same as the C9. I know those camps are very different. C8, C9, CX. Hopefully they'll be better at moving the HDMI 2.1, making it more seamless, having less issues, but who knows? Who knows? These are all made during a really dicey time in our world. But for LG, for this first video covering them, I give them decent marks, but it's very samey for me, especially as regards to their OLED line. So their mini LED line, mini LED, micro LED is amazing in theory, meaning it's promising, and it's been promising this for years, especially with Samsung, is the peak brightness of an LED and the black level of an OLED, that infinite contrast with that HDR pop. I have the TCL R635. I like mini LED. There is going to be still some blooming or some graying or some crushed black. So I'm really interested to see how LG handles that. But again, they have to do a lot to convince me, considering how they've handled the Nano cell in the last number of years, as the Nano cell was really marketed as being better than their previous LEDs. And like I mentioned, and you'll see at the end of this video, is only their really expensive, or not really expensive, their pretty expensive 8K model is the best one I've seen, especially in person, where it had great blacks. Again, you're going to see it against the ZX from last year as well. But they're going to have to really convince me, again, other than marketing. And the reason why I bring up E3, for those of you that are gamers, E3 shows you a lot of demos and a lot of promises. To me, TVs either show you a lot of prototypes of what will be, but they won't give you a date, or it's a lot of market speak of their dual processing, blah, 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 blah. Show me on the screen. That's what I want to see. I want to see when I walk in and I see a C9 and a CX, and then I see a C1, I want to be able to look at it and go, oh my God, that's a C1. Not have to get up to the sticker and go, oh Jesus, that's a C8. They should be somewhat different. Not huge differences, but it's the market speak, which I think is just very samey, and I really don't believe that stuff anymore. I do believe processing does make a big difference, especially with Sony, Samsung, and LG. The processing is definitely head and shoulders above the TCLs, the Hisenses, and the Vizios. You can tell, like, backlight algorithms and things like that. The processing, the upscaling is on another level with the big three. LG has definitely improved since their early OLED days, but change it up a little bit more. Offer that bright panel on the whole C line. So I'm guessing, as I mentioned before, the 83-inch will be a premium OLED. But is that 83-inch going to be brighter than the ZX? Because from what I understand, the ZX isn't like 2,000 nits or anything. It's basically an 8K, beautiful OLED with amazing processing and a great in person. But you're messing up these lineups, a lot of these companies, putting lower end, high end, and shuffling them around. So we'll see. Those are my quick but not quick thoughts at the 2021 lineup from LG. We'll get more into this in detail after CES is over. We'll break down each lineup, but these are my kind of regular person thoughts on what I saw. Nothing mind-blowing, kind of, again, all process speak. But next, as the video, this part of it concludes, you're going to see the LG ZX at Value Electronics next to last year's Nano Cell 8K, which also looks stunning. That's about 7 minutes. I hope you enjoy that. Check out Value Electronics in the description below, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. All right, guys, here we are looking at the 77-inch ZX LG 8K OLED. Is their flagship for 2021. It's also being carried over from 2020. This panel is $20,000 at 77-inch. I believe it's upwards of $30,000 at the larger size. We are here at Value Electronics in Scarsdale, New York. You've seen them on the channel many times. It's an amazing store, but the ZX is absolutely stunning. OLEDs in general are gorgeous. They look very much the same from far away. You need to be up a little bit closer to the ZX to really see the difference, especially since this panel is 77 inches, where the Z9 was 88, I believe, maybe 90 inches, but you could be farther away. The 77-inch mark, you have to be closer. But it still looks amazing as you see me zoom in here. This is the LG Global demo, which is also stunning. You can find that on their YouTube channel. What's funny is some of the speakers and the equipment you see around these displays cost more than the displays. There's a BMW to my right. There's equipment, everywhere in this room that is absurdly expensive, but it is a gorgeous store. The ZX looks phenomenal. But I will say, as gorgeous as it looks, the Panasonic from last year, which is calibrated, looks equally as good, if not a little bit more detailed and a little bit more natural. Here is the remote, LG Signature remote. Now, sometimes in store, these TVs that you see on are waiting to be calibrated, or they're customers' displays that are being broken in. So I'm not able to go into the settings and mess around, but apparently it looks identical to last year's CX from what I've heard. As I mentioned, the Panasonic in the room, it's so calibrated that it has a more natural, lifelike image, but, you know, considering the price difference between the two, this is also, again, 77 inches, and it's also 8K. Apparently, the processing in this flagship is much better than the processing in the rest of the lineup. Again, that's marketing processing, but I'm sure it's pretty amazing. Keep in mind that this is also being filmed in an absurdly bright room. There's a skylight above me and windows off to my left. Now I'm panning over to the 75-inch AN099. This is the Nano cell at 8K. I was blown away by how nice this panel actually looks. You see I'm here off angle. It comes in 75. I believe it comes in a 65 as well. I'm surprised there's not an 86-inch, because there is 86 inches in their other Nano 4K lineup. But this is a pretty popular display, and it's probably the best looking Nano I've ever seen. I would have thought it was a VA panel, but it looks very, very nice. I'll pan back so you can see it next to the ZX. It doesn't get destroyed, which is pretty amazing. It's not a cheap display either, and again, it's at 75. I'd much rather see this at 77 at least. But again, extremely impressive. Again, you have that off-angle viewing of an IPS panel. Has all the gaming features of the OLEDs, which is also great. And I'll pan back and show you the two of them next to each other. But again, as I mentioned before, you can actually see the size difference between 77 and 75 is pretty substantial. But again, they have a lot to prove to me, LG, for what they can do. That's the first Nano cell I've really seen where I was blown away by. So we'll see how they handle the mini LED. And right in front of me to my right is an A9S. And in front of me, all the boxes there are the Panasonics, the GZ1000s. But they both look really nice. I admit that Nano cell actually hangs in there with that black level. Really, really impressive. So that is my thoughts on LG CES so far. My lineup, again, very markety. And here I am showing you the actual ZX, the top of the line for them in person, which I shot last week before CES. And also the Nano cell, which for me, maybe it's a litmus test, look at that black level, on what the mini LED can provide. That's pretty impressive for a Nano cell and for an IPS panel. Again, hopefully this is a measuring stick for them and they can actually bring that mini LED looking closer to that, maybe even better. But I was really impressed with the both of them. I'll come down to Value Electronics and I'll shoot more footage from the ZX. We'll run some demos on it and get some hands-on experience with it. I hope you guys are doing well and you're enjoying all the CES coverage that you're seeing. I'll be touching on it here and there, but doing more videos like you see now, which are more discussion-based, which are still pretty long, but, you know, less analytical and more of what we think as regular folks. Yeah, it's impressive, man. The Nano cell looks good at that size and at that level at 8K. Those are nice colors. And again, the advantage of being off angle of the IPS really shows here without an X-wide viewing angle filter or anything. It's really nice. All right, guys. Thank you as always. I will see you in the next video. Take care.